Hey guys, welcome to Badass Reviews, and this is At the Movies. And today I'm going to be talking about one of my most anticipated films of the year. It is none other than The Irishman, Martin Scorsese's epic 3.5 hour film, which is currently streaming on Netflix. So I'm going to go into full spoilers in this review, so you have been warned. What can I say about The Irishman? I've been waiting for a mob film from Martin Scorsese for a long time. And I'm so happy to say that he is back with a bang. Now, a lot of people have said that a 3.5 hour movie, especially a mob film, could be a bit taxing, could be a bit too long. Let me assure you that if you are a fan of this kind of movies, um, from yesteryears, all these famous mob films or gangster movies, I can assure you one thing: you will not be bored, because this 3.5 hour movie, sometimes it takes its time to build up, but every scene has a reason for it, and every dialogue has a big payoff. It starts off like many Scorsese films before, with a narration from the lead character and a famous song in the background. In this case, is it's "In the Still of the Night" by the Five Satins, and basically it's about Frank Sheeran, the Irishman, played by Robert De Niro here, and he is reminiscing about his life to us, the viewer. And Scorsese is a master director. There's not much to be said about him, especially if you are into his history of filmmaking. Then you know the kind of movies he loves to make. It's very cerebral. It's very dialogue driven, and there are some violent scenes as well. But at the basis of it, it is always a character study, and it's no different in The Irishman. His strength has always lied in the ability to flesh out his character arcs, making the viewers feel like a fly on the wall every time there's a conversation between a few people. And in this movie, it's no different. It is his least violent film, in my opinion, especially if you have seen his other works. In my opinion, it is his least violent film, and he makes a point to show the salt of the earth gangster or mob members, not the flashy rock and roll star that he's used to showing, maybe in Goodfellas or Casino. And there is mob violence, of course. It's a mob film, especially it's based on an account of a true incident, or true life. So there is bound to be some violence. But like I mentioned, it is his least violent film that I have seen. Especially, my favorite mob violence scene was the assassination or the murder of Crazy Joe Gallo. It is so subtle, how the camera follows the lead character, in this case Frank Sheeran, as he does his deed, and it's quick. It's about 5 to 6 minutes long, that particular scene, yet it stands out to me. So the camera work, especially, like I said, it's this particular scene had a tracking shot. There's a lot of tracking shots. It's something that is very common in Scorsese's films, and the cinematographer of this film is Rodrigo Prieto, and he has worked with Scorsese before. His work, I think it is his third straight film with Scorsese, and his fourth overall with Martin Scorsese. After Wolf of Wall Street, Silence, and then now this. And I think that his camera work was brilliant. It captured a lot of things that not many cinematographers are able to, but he does it extremely effortlessly, in my opinion. You might know his early work from his time working with Alejandro Iñárritu, Amores Perros, 21 Grams, Babel, and so you might be familiar with his work prior to this. In fact, like I mentioned, he has worked with Scorsese before, and he utilizes a few tropes that I think work very well throughout the film. The tracking shots, as I mentioned, how it moves from one character to another or from one scene to another. Also, the intimate close-up shots during conversations, um, where he's so close but far enough that we can see the nuanced acting of all the actors in that particular scene. So I thought it was great, and also I remember reading this that he utilized a three-headed camera, which was needed because of the extensive de-aging process that was required post-production, and I thought he utilized it really well. I thought he was top-notch. So I think Rodrigo Prieto would and should be nominated for cinematography award in the coming Academy Awards next year, but let's see. The movie is written by Steven Zalilian of a non-fiction work by Charles Brandt titled "I Heard You Paint Houses," and I think he has done a good job because the screenplay is engaging. It does not lag despite its 3.5 hour um, long film. Despite it being a 3.5 hour long film, it never feels laggy, and I think all of the scenes are made necessary. There isn't any scene that could be left out. So I thought Steven Zalilian did a great job. Now the editing itself is by Martin Scorsese's frequent collaborator in the editing department, Thelma Schoonmaker, and I think many people who have seen his movies before know the kind of editor that Thelma is, and I think she did a pretty good job in this movie. It is the editing is crisp, although I did feel there was a few jarring continuity shots between when the camera moves or something like this. But I guess if you watch the film with a keen eye, you could probably catch it. Otherwise, it's not a big deal. Now the music is by Robbie Robertson, who has also worked with Scorsese prior to this in many movies prior to this, and he has chosen a background score that is well suited to the era, and the songs that he has chosen are also well suited to the respective scenes. So I think he did a great job as well. Now let's move on to the cream of this film, which is none other than the acting. Um, if you know who is acting in this movie, then you can expect one thing, which is an acting clinic, and the three leads, they put on one hell of an acting clinic. I don't think you expect any less from a character study, especially when it's mainly about three characters, and I think that this movie has gone to show that Scorsese and his frequent collaborations with his favorite actors, they just work every time. The lead character, known as the Irishman, the title role, is played by none other than the legendary Robert De Niro. It is his ninth film with Scorsese, but it's his first in 2.5 decades. I think since 1995's Casino. So I mean, 2.5 decades is a long time in Hollywood. Yet it doesn't seem like they have missed a step. The two of them, they seem to have remembered every single movie. They have worked together. They know each other's strengths well, and it was great to see De Niro flashing out his character in such a way. And it is De Niro's one of his most understated performance. I think he has underplayed his character a lot, yet it is an emotionally daunting role, where he spends most of the film reminiscing about his life leading up to the beginning of the film, where he's a much older man, in his twilight of his years, thinking about his past. And I think De Niro is one of the greatest actors, if not his generation ever. In This is again my opinion, uh, ever to grace the silver screen. And I think he has done a lot of great films in the past, but he seems to have lost his luster of sorts in recent years, I would say. But in this movie, he plays a man who you know who has a mentor, who grows from nothing into something, who has a family, yet he who has two families, actually, his actual family and his family at work, and is consistently torn between the two, yet he keeps choosing his work family over his real family, and how that affects him in his life over the years. And I think that you know every single action that he has done, whether it's shown on screen or not, affects him in all facets of his life. And at the end of the day, the biggest loser is him, because he loses his family. And I think De Niro did a fantastic job. I'm pretty sure that he would be nominated in the lead actor role, although it does seem to be a pretty tight group of actors vying for that nod. Apart from De Niro, the other returning actor is Joe Pesci, who has previously been in three movies with this duo, the Scorsese De Niro duo. And this is his kind of his comeback movie, after, I think, since he retired, semi-retired in '99 to concentrate on a music career. And he has said that the only man he would come out of retirement for would be Martin Scorsese, and he seems to also not miss the step, because he slides into this role perfectly. Now Pesci plays a very, for a change, a very mild-mannered mobster, the mob boss Russell Bufalino in this movie, and it is a big change to his previous mob characters. He always plays the hothead, wild, super uber violent mobster, and in this movie he's a bit more toned down, and I think his nuanced acting showed throughout the film. He was great as well. Now, this is where my opinion comes in. I think the absolute masterclass in acting was performed by none other than the man Al Pacino. Now, I think, in my opinion, he was the best performer among the three. I do think that he is a definite shoo-in for the best actor, leading actor, come the Oscar season. Alongside, from what I've heard, Adam Driver from Marriage Story, and Leo from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and perhaps even Christian Bale and Matt Damon from either of them from Ford v Ferrari. Now, I think Al Pacino has a better chance of winning an Oscar. Now, if you remember, he only won an Oscar for Scent of a Woman, which I don't think was his best performance. It was kind of a Lifetime Achievement Actor award of sorts, and I think this could actually be his big swan song. Now, if Pacino has remarkably never worked with Scorsese before. This is his first film with Scorsese. How this has gone on for a best part of 50 years without the two of them crossing paths, I would never know. It's just one of those things in Hollywood, I think. And he famously only acted with Robert De Niro in Heat, where they actually had scenes with each other. If you remember that famous diner scene where they had a conversation with each other. And in Godfather 2, the two of them were in Godfather 2, but they did not have any scenes together. If you remember, Pacino played Michael Corleone, and De Niro played a young Don Vito in his youth. And of course, there was a film a few years away, I think about 10 years ago, called Righteous Kill. And the less said about that movie, the better, because that movie was just absolute horseshit. And it really screwed up what could have been a great performance between the two of them. Pacino, Pesci, De Niro, the three of them worked superbly well with each other. It's a pity we've never seen their interplay more before this. And Pacino gets to do his infamous, blow ups, which he always has. Where his voice shoots up a few octaves higher, and you hear that kind of guttural voice that Pacino has. But it happens at a time when you least expect it. Throughout the movie, you expect him to blow up a few times. It doesn't happen, but when it does happen, the timing is perfect. Again, kudos to Scorsese for that. He seems to have a knack to know when exactly to place that particular scene. And I think Pacino is back to his top form, back to his best after a less than stellar twilight of his career. He's not had a lot of great performances in recent years, great films. But I guess, if you ask me, the two of them, especially De Niro and Pacino, they have worked for long enough that they can possibly just work for the paycheck now. And The Irishman is possibly their only foray into an acting role in recent years, I would say. Now, coming back to Pacino again, he plays Jimmy. I forgot to mention this. He plays Jimmy Hoffa, the infamous Teamster Union president who went missing for a long time. This is an actual story, an actual person. He went missing. Nobody knew what happened. There's a lot of conflicting theories about what happened to him, how that he had disappeared or he was murdered. This particular story, the Irishman story, is just one of those theories, but it has long been accepted as the most possible theory of what happened to Jimmy Hoffa. And he plays a man whose hubris, his ego, his illusions of power ultimately leads to his downfall. I have to mention another thing. The lake house conversation between De Niro and Pacino, even though it's not face to face, it's over the telephone, was one of the best interplay between the two of them. Again, I wish we could have seen more movies with the two of them together. Although sometimes the less we see of a certain thing, it makes more of an impact when we actually see it. Apart from these three actors, there's a few other actors that I would like to mention. Ray Romano did a great job as well. Harvey Keitel is there in a very small role, just coming back for his mentor as well. But the standout to, I think, a lot of the American viewers would be Stephen Graham. Now, Graham is one of my favorite British actors. He's quite famous in the British television shows or British films. He's also a fellow Red, a fellow Scouser, and he is probably the revelation of this movie to the American audience. I would love to see him in more American films and more leading roles, because I think most people stateside will only recognize him as Al Capone from the Boardwalk Empire HBO series. So I think we should see him more often. He plays a mobster by the name of Anthony Provenzano, who is the antagonist of the film, if I can say so. Now, Stephen Graham, he is a man of a small stature, so I think he fits his role perfectly, because the character that he plays is somebody who is hot-tempered, who the viewer, me in this case, just absolutely hated every time you saw him on screen. He is just somebody who's ruthless. You hate the guts of this guy. You want to see him die on screen brutally, which unfortunately does not happen. And I think that the actor is the person that is successful in making the viewer feel this way for a person, for a character in a film. So kudos, big kudos to Stephen Graham. I hope to see you more often in big leading roles in American films moving forward. Um, Otherwise, there's always British television to fall back on. What else can I say? One of the scenes where Stephen Graham actually excels in, he goes toe to toe with De Niro and Pacino, with these two legends of acting, especially in this one scene in Florida where it plays a bit on some laughs, but the tension is palpable, and Graham actually manages to go shoulder to shoulder with the two legends there. Apart from that, what else can I say? The story ultimately is about Frank Sheeran. It is a story where a film where you feel everything that he feels on screen, everything that Robert De Niro's character feels on screen. You feel his anger, you feel his disappointment, you feel his defeated stance when he has to toe the company line, and finally you feel his remorse. At the end of the day, like I mentioned, this movie is about regret, and despite not being from a mob background or anything like this, even a layman could actually connect with the kind of experiences, or the emotional experiences that the lead character feels. And in my opinion, that is the strength of this film. As I mentioned up top, this movie has a bit of de-aging done, because the film travels over a best part of half a decade. It was not a major issue for me, even if I was watching it on my on my big screen TV. The press had made out that it was not very realistic or something like that, but I don't think it made a major difference because the acting is still there, and we know that there is a de-aging process done, so you don't expect to see a Pacino from Dog Day Afternoon, or a De Niro from Taxi Driver, or Pesci from Goodfellas. No, you know who you'll be seeing. You'll be seeing the men who are 70 plus years old, de-aged to fit that particular year or era. And I don't think it was very noticeable to me. There were some physical anachronisms, because a 79-year-old man will not move like a 40 or 30-year-old man. But then again, I think that was edited perfectly. There are some scenes where there's some physical task involved, like running or jumping, or getting up, simple things, even getting up from the sofa or something like that. But it is very expertly shown from the top up, or something like shown from the top up, or even subtly moving the camera around so that the viewers can't really make out the physical problems. So that is my long-winded review for The Irishman. As I mentioned up top, it was one of my most anticipated films of the year. I've been waiting for a mob film from Scorsese for a long time. In my opinion, I think this is his finale in his trilogy of mob films, Italian mafia films. It started with Goodfellas, Casino, and then now ending with The Irishman. I give it a 4.5 out of 5. It is my third highest rated film of the year, behind Joker, Parasite, and this now, The Irishman. I think it was fantastic. Of course, I'm a big fan of this genre and a big fan of the actors involved, as well as the filmmaker himself. So it probably explains the slight bias in my rating. I do think that that you still should watch this movie. It's available to see on Netflix, so do watch it. Try to watch it in one sitting. I know 3.5 hours is a bit long, but my suggestion is to try to watch it in one sitting, so that you capture each and every nuance of each and every hour, because it is important. So this has been a presentation of Badass Reviews at the Movies. Like, share, comment, subscribe, do that thing, but most importantly, keep calm and rock on.